Hey guys, it's Julesy, and I had a baby at 37 years old. So let's talk about it. I am so excited and happy to be here. I am living the life that I've always wanted to live. And in order to get through this video, I'm going to light a candle from the SVG Book Club candle line. This is A Loving Ethic. It is named after Bell Hooks' All About Love, utilizing all dimensions of love, because that is where I'm currently at in my life. You know, my book club is a 501(c) nonprofit, and all purchases help to support the work of the book club. And that candle is absolutely one of my favorites, and I'm so happy that there is a new person, a new element of my life that gets to come into the dimensions of love that I am feeling at the moment. I had a baby at 37 years old. I do have a registry if anyone is interested, because when I've talked about it or announced the baby on other platforms, people have all asked for the registry. So I finally put one together. Honestly, most of the stuff that we needed for the baby, everything we needed for the baby, because I had this child in community, because I live the politics that I discuss here on my YouTube channel, regardless of how people comprehend or understand them, I am actually living them. Almost everything we needed for the child was purchased. It was just such a beautiful experience. My baby shower, man, I wish you could have been there. So much love. Every part of this process I get to think about, most part, through the lens of compassion, respect, protection, safety, community. And I honestly, truly, I really do love that for me. Okay. All that to say that the registry that I put together is mostly postpartum things. We are cloth diapering. I am breastfeeding. So things that assist with that. Small smattering. But honestly, truly, if you really, really, really want to, show a sign of support and celebration for this new part of my life, I would love it if you could donate to the SVG Book Club. We have an ongoing fundraiser to help us build out the equity, to pay for the labor of the team that helps us keep going through my 9-10 months of pregnancy, through this 4th trimester, which is a haze unto itself. Donating to the book club helps us to pay our team and to keep doing the work of making reading accessible. I guess we'll just start from my initial thoughts on labor and delivering, because when most people hear my age and when I had a child, they want to know about the pregnancy journey and they want to know about how I experienced labor. And maybe at some point in time, I will do a fleshed out video of my labor experience. But I will say, for the most part, I feel like my experience through pregnancy was very much so colored by the recent release of the documentary Aftershock, which details the high mortality rate of Black women in America, regardless of their socioeconomic status. And I can't say that fully made my experience like a negative experience, but I feel like a lot of the caution that I received, because honestly, truly, I had no medical issues. I had a very healthy pregnancy. I passed all my tests. Everything cleared, but I still received a lot of caution, particularly around my age, my racial identity, and the fact that I am considered obese by medical standards. I am a plus size woman. But yeah, my age, my racial identity, and my weight consistently were listed as causes for concern, even though I was passing all the tests and everything was going well. And because I wanted to have, and I had already made it clear that my plan was to have a water birth at the birthing center, and unfortunately in Charlotte, North Carolina, there's not a lot of options for having a child outside of a traditional hospital setting. Because of my age, the birthing center still sent me to maternal fetal medicine to get all my ultrasounds, and I had about 6 of them, which is a lot for a pregnancy. Yeah, it was still just a lot of kind of pushing me towards doing a hospital birth with interventions, in that pushing me towards induction, pushing me towards considering a C-section. And I really, really wanted to have a water birth. My sister had a water birth. I've had tons of friends who have done it, and they've had great experiences. So we were gunning to go to the birthing center. And in the end, that caution that maternal fetal medicine, it won out because I ended up having a hospital birth and I was induced. And what I will say about that right now, in the here and now, is I am very grateful to have a healthy child because that was my goal. And every choice I made was centered around birthing a healthy, living, breathing child. That was always my end goal. And so I ended up having to let go some of my birthing plan, but I was induced on Pitocin and I got an epidural. Not one, but two. And Pitocin is the damn devil. Labor and delivery has definitely allowed me to have more understanding of how drug addiction comes about, because I have never faced such agony in my life. And that little bit of high, I was trying to stave off getting the epidural, so I was doing other pain management. And that little bit of high you get from some of them drugs, I understand why people might chase that. I understand why people might chase that feeling and how they get caught up in it. Maybe I'll do a video going into more detail about it because, oh man, I'm being triggered even right now just thinking about my labor and delivery experience. But I'm just grateful that I was able to give birth to a healthy child and to experience the joy of motherhood and going upon a journey that I very conscientiously thought about, pursued, and being where I want to be at in life. Like living the life I want to live is really, really a joyful experience for me right now. But now as I ease into my child being here Earthside, I will say the 4th trimester is absolutely a haze. It is a pledge process unto itself. And for me, most of the stress of it all has been centered around feeding my child. Feeding a newborn baby really is a stressor for a lot of new parents, because regardless of whether you breastfeed, you pump and give them breast milk, or you formula feed, getting adjusted to that middle of the night feed that my kid eats at 12, at 4, and 7, well, now it's gotten to the point where the 4 a.m. feed doesn't bother me because my body naturally wakes up before him to do that feed. But the 7 a.m. feed now hurts a little bit more because it's not a big enough window of sleep in between. But that middle of the night feed, getting adjusted to that, having to be cognizant and awake, and giving up the idea of sleeping 8 consistent hours in a night, yeah. Wow. My kid has a medical condition that really changes the way that they eat. In order to prevent them from aspirating, which is getting liquid in their lungs, there are certain techniques that we have to employ in feeding him, and I cannot just feed my child and put them down after feeding them. So that middle of the night feed is an hour and a half process for me. I am up from 3:45 to about 5:30 every night, But I love my kid. I'd be looking at him like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. I'm really, really tired. Like, this hurts in my core, but you are gorgeous. I'm so grateful to be here, even in this pain. I do feel like with the medical condition, having to go to the hospital, we have had to do a lot of testing with the hospital bills that comes with that, and the copious amount of doctor's appointments that we've had to do in the past couple of months. This 4th trimester is like a haze plus, we get a little bit of a harder process on our end because of the medical issues that we're facing. But, we have a very good prognosis. We're hoping he outgrows this in the very near future. And I'm still very grateful, It's hard. I'm tired. I have not posted on YouTube. I was slacking on Patreon because April was a doozy. And there was a lot of hospital visits. And there was a lot of doctor's visits. And I was just trying to burrow through it all. And I looked up at the end of the month and was like, wow, you've really been through it. To talk about the parasocial relationships and the comments that I've been seeing when I initially announced that I was at least pregnant, even though I announced my pregnancy after having the child. But on Instagram and just across social media, are people making the remark about, wow, they understand this is a parasocial relationship, but they're still incredibly happy for me. I think people are acknowledging that you don't really, really know me. I am a person that has existed as a influencer on the internet. And I think because I've made a conscious effort to not wrap people up into too deep of a parasocial relationship with me, and that in the past decade or so, I have moved towards being a more private person about my personal life. And this one element that I'm sharing with you, you realize that I don't share much at all of my personal life, but you have a deep emotional reaction to this. And I appreciate it. And I actually think that is normal. Watching somebody experience a transformative moment in their life that is steeped in so much joy does actually naturally stir an emotional reaction in most people if you have any consideration towards that person. When I've talked in the past about parasocial relationships and not putting too much of your personal self out, I think that the negative of parasocial relationship is setting people up to feel like they are owed access to your personal life, knowing that there are going to be times when you are going to request privacy, particularly around having a child and pregnancy, and just seeing other influencers who have announced their pregnancy at the very onset, before they even get their first anatomy scan, which is 20 weeks, before they even hit the week of viability, publicly announcing their pregnancy, wrapping people in, then creating, this connection to their child, and people really feeling like they have an investment in that child. And then when they make decisions that either they stop showing their child on the line, or something negative happens and they no longer want to discuss that element of their life and they want privacy and they don't want to have to explain themselves to their audience, that's a negative parasocial relationship to me. That at the point when I am ready to set a boundary, people in mass feel that they have a right to cross that boundary is a negative. Me posting finally that I'm pregnant or that I went through a pregnancy after it's happened, and you being like, oh my gosh, how wonderful, because I followed you for so long and this is such a transformative moment in your life. I'm like, wow, that's fine. That's healthy. I don't think y'all have to knock yourselves down. I probably will not be posting my child on the internet. I keep going back and forth about this because I think there's a certain age where maybe I might post, because they'll look so different after that age. Posting them as a baby, maybe I could, because they're not going to look the same. You won't be able to tell what my child looks like as an elementary school student if I post him as a baby. So, I'm so obsessed with him. I look at him and I stare at him every day. I take so many pictures of him that I do kind of want to share the joy with you, but I'm going back and forth because I feel like if I have been so focused on my privacy, I also have to, give my child that autonomy of privacy from the get-go. But I'm in love and I'm obsessed and I'm so happy to be here. I am very grateful that I made the choice to keep my pregnancy private. Privacy definitely costs, but the joy is worth it. I, as an influencer, as a millennial Black woman, with a Black feminist, you can even consider it a more radical politic, could have made a ton of money off of discussing and highlighting my pregnancy. Motherhood is full of ads and a push towards consumerism on the internet. I have never received so much advertisement in different formats. Even when I'm watching just videos that pop up on my For You page, they're low-key adverts. Everything's an ad. Everything's a hack where I need to go buy a thing that's going to make my life easier. And I could have definitely jumped full force into that as somebody who has an audience of mostly career-minded Black women. And I decided from the moment I found out I was pregnant that I wanted to experience this journey on my own, because the other side of it, and really when we talk about parasocial relationships and what the influencer and the content creator has to consider, is that we have to consider our own mental health. And people tend to share too much, give up too much of themselves, and then have to take these very long, extensive breaks and then come back and talk about the mental health. And they usually have to talk about it in very vague terms and needing rest and needing a break. And, I'm not actually trying to shade that, because it's very legitimate. Take care of yourselves. Log off when need be. But I did not want to put myself in a situation where any sort of negative comment, any sort of discussion about me on the internet around my pregnancy was going to be a negative marker in my life. I wanted no negative outside influence, because one of my rules of thumbs about what I do and don't share online is if I would fight you over it in real life because you said something out of pocket to me about it, I'm not finna post it. And, pregnancy comes with a ton of hormones. I never cried so much in my entire life. I've never been so outwardly emotional in my entire life. I just knew for the betterment of my mental health, for me to be able to make decisions rooted in just me and what me and my family and what our decisions are in having this child, that it was just between us and not the outside world, that was worth the sacrifice of, not being able to profit off of my pregnancy journey. I think the privacy pregnancy was 120% worth it. I would do it the same way all over again. And I'm so happy that I just chose to share this experience with close friends and family. When it came down to it and I had to make particular decisions around how I wanted to give birth in the heat of the moment, I didn't have to worry about, oh, I need to post content this time, or I need to get stuff out and make sure that my audience knows. I didn't have to worry about, oh, as a plus size woman, people talking negatively about my body, or feeling like I had to show up on the internet in a certain way and perform my pregnancy and perform motherhood a certain way and make myself seem like, everything is always good all the time. Like, I just got to live in whatever my reality was at that time and be present. I'm happy that I did not put myself in a position where the expectation of the internet or the expectation of an audience would have been an extra weight on myself. And also, God forbid something bad happened. I know that grief is a journey. And I, again, didn't want to be pushed into this urgency of having to show up on the internet in a certain way and then not be able to take care of myself and the particular needs of my mental health on the other side. I knew I wanted to become a mother, and I knew I wanted to show up as a certain kind of mother. And so I wanted to keep myself as physically and mentally healthy as possible. Yeah. And speaking of physical health, the little walks they have you do in order to walk the baby out, man, who knew that low impact cardio could really be so good for your body? That's such a silly statement to make, but them walks really had me burning calories. Little lightweight 2-3 mile walks really got me in good. Lastly, I have heard some smatterings of negative comments about me being perceived as a single mother. Now, I have a second YouTube channel. It's called Julie's BFFR. You should go subscribe, especially if you're not yet ready to join the Patreon. I post snippets or edited down versions of the Patreon videos that I do, so you can kind of see the discourse that we're having over there. And I did a video at the Sapphire tier, which is one of my higher tiers, which was a tier that I brought into my pregnancy journey with me. They knew before anybody else. And so when I did this video about plotting for single motherhood, people had tweeted out and were encouraging women to plan to be single mothers, regardless of their partner status, that when they think of motherhood, they should think about, are they capable of doing it 100% on their own? Because likely that is where they're going to end up. There's a high chance that's where you're going to end up. And I think that is incredibly bad advice. And now that my child is here, I absolutely think that is incredibly bad advice to encourage women to think about motherhood as a pursuit that they have to do 100% alone. And that when the man fails them, that there is no other way to think about motherhood other than you are then going to have to do it 100% on your own. It doesn't matter whether you're married, whether you're just dating someone, no matter what that man is telling you, you need to plan for it on your own. And I get the fact that, patriarchy and capitalism and all these systems of oppression exist that can put people in situations they didn't plan to be put in. That someone can end up a single mother, that their partner can pass away, that their partner can do a 180 and become a completely different person once a child is born. And that society is really set up to allow men to get away with abandoning their child. There aren't a ton of repercussions for a man deciding that he no longer wants to be a parent. There are a ton of repercussions for when a woman decides that, but not so many for the man. I understand the risk that they're talking about, but I don't think our response to this negative environment that we live in is to say, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to prepare to do it all by myself when community building is right there. And that's something that I have overly talked about. Now, I understand because this was a video that I did on Patreon to a tier that already knew I was pregnant, I ended up having to edit out a lot of my personal comments to post that video on my second YouTube channel because I wasn't publicly discussing my pregnancy yet. And some people watched that video thinking that I was saying don't plan to be a single mother. Single mother to me does not equate to doing this all by yourself. I am not married. I do have a father of my child. We have a very healthy relationship. We have a very healthy co-parenting relationship. Watching him be a father is a beautiful, joyful experience. I love it. I have a community that has showed up and showed out every step of the way. I have never felt so loved in my life. And because I've been so focused on community building, when I found out I was pregnant, I remember telling my therapist that I was like, oh, I think I need to get out more while I'm in my early stages of pregnancy and start meeting other mothers in Charlotte. And she was like, well, if you've been focused on community in the way that you and I have talked, they'll just show up on the other end. You don't have to worry about going out and pursuing meeting new moms. People will show up for you. And the way relationships that I have had, even just in passing, like people that I'm like acquaintances with, people from like when I lived in Houston and when I lived in various cities, and just being a person who was always focused on showing up as a certain kind of community member, and to have these people show up in such a caring, loving way. Community building takes labor. And what I was trying to say in that video that some people misconstrued is do the work of building community, because there's no way to raise a child in a healthy environment as an individual. Child rearing is not meant to be an individual pursuit. There's no way to keep yourself healthy holistically and keep that child healthy and to do it 100% on your own. And I think a lot of the times, beyond the failure of the male, if you are partnered with a man and that relationship may be falling apart, but the idea that like your family not showing up for you, I think oftentimes it's rooted in us believing that our family is obligated to showing up for us, and that's not investing in the labor and the work. Every relationship that I have in my life that has showed up in such a beautiful, positive way, whether it's the father's family, whether it's my own family, whether it's my homegirls and my homeboys. I had homeboys get on flights from LA to come to my baby shower. And my niggas really showed up and showed out. And I love that. I love my homies for real. Like, I'm like the memory of my baby shower. I had a real big baby shower because I wanted to celebrate the community around me. And I wanted to do it in a very high-end luxury way. And I'm so happy we did it like that because it was a good time. But all those relationships took work on my part. I had to show up. I had to think it through. I had to put labor into my actions to build these relationships. It wasn't just the assumption that because I'm having your grandchild, that relationship is automatically going to be good. I wanted to make sure that the foundation was built first, and we were both doing the work to create that foundation so that it can be a beautiful, healthy relationship. I get that we're all reaching for ease and softness in our life, especially as outside gets more expensive and things feel like they're getting more difficult. But I promise you the work of building community is really, really worth it. And that was what I was trying to say. Not that being a single mother and how we define it about not being married is a bad thing. You know, I'm very pro build the relationship you want to build. Break out of the bounds of the heteronormative societal standards that so many of the relationships end up in divorce, and rethink the way you consider the bounty of diverse relationships in your life. I have continually said that. And that also has crossed over into my opinion of how to plan for parenthood. I am very excited to raise my child in community. My mama gets here tomorrow. Okay, his auntie just left yesterday. My friends are rolling in at the end of this month. We have so many trips and engagements planned. I'm going on a walk with my homegirl and her son this weekend. Like, I love my community and I love being able to foster these relationships and experience this brand new era of my life in community with people that I deeply love and respect, and that is reciprocated. There's so much reciprocity built into that, and I'm excited for my child to experience this community of love and joy as he grows. So, and if you've seen the baby shower video, you probably saw my child's name. I'm so proud. I'm so proud of his name, okay? Named after a great man, you know? Kwame Ture's first name, okay? Let me go pick up my baby now. I'm gonna see you on the other side. Thanks for watching. Deuces!